off with me, folks, on the Boston Celtics having more 50-point wins this season than they have 10-point losses. Believe it or not, that is a fact. They have one 50-point win this season. That just happened tonight against the Toronto Raptors on New Year's Eve, and they have 0 10-point losses on the season. So I'm going to recap that very quickly for you here off the top. The Boston Celtics have one 50-point win this season and 0 10-point losses. Take that as you may. A pretty darn good end of the 2024 calendar year for the Boston Celtics. A 125-71 win over the Toronto Raptors in a matinee game. It was Kids Day at TD Garden, and boy, did the Celtics deliver quite a show for all the kids who were on board at TD Garden on this day. Before we get too deep into this episode, I want to tell everyone out there, this is the final video version of the Sound Off podcast for the next few months. I just so happen to be heading out for paternity leave for the next few months. I'm excited about that, spending some time with my little baby girl. But I will be back at the end of March toward the beginning of April, and we'll have the video versions back coming here on YouTube in just a few months. So bear with me. We're going on hiatus for a few months, but hopefully you'll all be excited to get back into this here in a few months right before the playoffs roll around for the Celtics. But rewinding to what just happened tonight at TD Garden for the Boston Celtics, they annihilated the Toronto Raptors. They eviscerated the Toronto Raptors. They dominated the Raptors. They humiliated the Raptors. Every word you want to use to describe a pure domination, that is what the Celtics did during this game. Top to bottom, everyone played well, and it all started during the fourth quarter when the Celtics really put this game away. Because remember, at halftime, they only led by 10. It was 45-35 at halftime, but during that third quarter, the Celtics caught their rhythm, and they wound up looking like the team that we've all expected them to look like every single night. They scored 45 points during the third quarter alone, and listen to these ridiculous shooting numbers. 74% shooting from the field for the whole team. It's hard to get that from one player. They got it for the whole team, from the whole team during the third quarter. 84% from three-point range. This is ridiculous. Like, imagine being on the other side of that and being a player on the Raptors or a coach and having to watch the Celtics do that. 74% from the field as a team. 84% from three-point range as a team. Those are absurd numbers, unstoppable numbers, and that, unstoppable, is what the Celtics were on this night. Once they got started, there was no turning them off, and that is what great teams do. It is incredibly difficult to turn it back in the other direction once a great team starts to find its rhythm. And tonight, for the first time in a while, the Celtics really looked like they had their rhythm, the same type of rhythm that they had last season when they won their first NBA championship since 2008. So great to see out of the Celtics. They really turned it up and ended the 2024 calendar year on a high note. And they just looked like themselves at both ends. Like, the defense was back. The offense looked great. The ball was hopping. Everyone was getting involved. But particularly defensively, the Celtics were really flying around and looking like they were they wanted to assert their dominance, and that's exactly what they did. Now, speaking on that, before the game, Joe Mazzulla had a funny moment with Noah Dalzell, one of the reporters who covers the Celtics, asking a question and basically saying, like, why do people think that just because you have a bad defensive night, that it has to say that the Celtics didn't play with effort or energy? Joe Mazzulla stopped the press conference and said, that's the most profound comment I've heard in my 3 years here as Celtics head coach. And that's because he knows the real numbers. And he knows the eye test as an NBA head coach. We don't know those things, okay? As fans, as media, we don't know that information. He knows it. And what he basically told everyone in the media room is that the Celtics, over the last 10 games, that was before tonight's dominance against the Raptors, they were one of the most dominant defensive teams in the league when it comes to what should have been expected out of their defense in terms of points, opponent field goal percentage. They were performing at a very high level, but other teams just happened to be making those shots. So he wasn't fretting about what happened over the previous games. He was seeing that the Celtics were still being great, and the energy and the effort was there. To Noah Dalzell's point, it doesn't just mean that if you give up a bunch of points, that means you're not giving effort, not giving energy. Maybe that happens on a dozen plays throughout a game, but not for a whole game. So that's what Joe Mazzulla had to say. Also got to note Jrue Holiday back in the lineup tonight. He got a full week off. His last game before tonight, which obviously was on the 31st, his last game was on the 23rd. So a full week off for Jrue Holiday before he came back, and he looked spry. He looked athletic. He looked like himself back out there. So that was great to see. Peyton Pritchard continued to cook. Another 19 points off the bench for the Celtics, 5 threes, 7 of 13 shooting. He just continues to strengthen his case for Sixth Man of the Year. So great to see those two guys either back to looking like themselves or continuing to put forth an incredible effort for the Celtics this season. All right, let's dive into a few fan comments. First up, we've got Bruce B. on Jrue Holiday's impact, which we just slightly touched on, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. Next up, we've got Michael on the Celtics playing pissed off tonight. I'd love to hear that. And then lastly, we've got McLean Lacerda, who is asking what I would say is a pretty impossible question. And that's going to be our last one. So let's dive into our first one here. My friend Bruce B. with our first comment of the night. All right, Bruce B., you're up. First comment of the night. Here it is. Jrue Holiday's mere presence makes such a huge difference for the C's. All right. Color me shocked that someone out there can actually acknowledge the fact that Jrue Holiday has been missing for most of the stretch where the Celtics weren't quite playing up to their level. Oh, and by the way, Kristaps Porzingis also hasn't been out there for the Celtics. So they've been missing 40% of their starting lineup for the better part of the last week. Maybe that contributes to some struggles, okay, people? All right, maybe they weren't quite playing up to their capabilities because they didn't have their whole team. But tonight they get Jrue Holiday back, and man, did it make a difference. Defensively, he sets the tone. Him and Derek White are the heads of the snake out on the perimeter. Those guys are trying to contain and apply pressure on the perimeter, and that speeds offenses up. It makes them do things that they wouldn't normally do, and it makes them uncomfortable. And Jrue Holiday was back in the lineup tonight, contributing to that. Now, at the other end of the floor, that's what really stood out to me, is because Jrue Holiday contributed in a significant fashion offensively, and he looked comfortable while doing it. We haven't seen that a whole lot this season. He just hasn't looked quite like himself, which probably could have been expected after he not only went to the NBA Finals and won it last season with the Celtics, but then also went straight into playing for Team USA overseas in the Olympics. So you add those things together, a very short off season for him. You could have expected some struggles out of the gates. But tonight he comes back into the lineup, scores 14 points in only 25 minutes, 5 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from three-point range. Great to see him having a rhythm from long distance. So again, offensively making an impact, defensively making an impact. The Jrue Holiday we saw tonight is the Jrue Holiday we saw all last season, and that, folks, is a dangerous, dangerous development for all of Boston's upcoming opponents. Having him back looking like that is a game changer for the Celtics, and it's not a surprise that the Celtics wound up dominating this game while he was back in the lineup. Jrue Holiday, it's great to see you back. Glad to see that you're feeling well. Happy New Year to you, my friend. It's great to have you back in the lineup. All right, next up, we've got Michael saying they were pissed with all the talk. They've hit their ceiling on a losing streak, not motivated. Today, they saw a big, and a couple letters that start with F and end with U. To everyone is what they sent out. All right, Michael, I love what you're saying here. It's a little explicit, so let's not go overboard here, but that really did seem like that's what the Celtics did tonight. They acknowledged, or maybe they just wanted to show all of the people who've been talking down on them since they had a little bit of struggles over the course of the last couple of weeks, and say, nah, we are still those people. We are still those guys, and we are still that team. And tonight they won by 54 points. And by the way, just in case everyone doesn't know, the record all time for the Celtics. Dating back to 1946, the record for the biggest win in a game, largest margin of victory, 56 points. The Celtics missed it by just 2 tonight. That's how dominant they were. 54-point win. They played like they were pissed. I'm with you, Michael. They had that attitude offensively. They had that attitude defensively that we are going to dominate this game. We are going to control what happens between the lines once that ball gets tossed up, and that is exactly what unfolded in front of us on New Year's Eve. So, Michael, I am absolutely with you here. I don't necessarily think that the Celtics came into this game saying, we need to make a statement. But I think they were saying to themselves, we need to play like ourselves. We need to play like the team that we know we can be and should be and were all last season. And tonight, they did it. The Celtics grab a 54-point win and fall just 2 points shy of the all-time record for largest margin of victory in Boston Celtics history. All right, folks, last comment of the night and last comment I'm going to be taking for quite a while. All right, McLean Lacerda, you are up. And I said earlier that this was kind of an impossible question. Now you get to hear it. McLean Lacerda says, why can't they play like this every night? We have the talent, the ability, the system, the coaching strategy, and fan support. This is why we get mad at them. All right, McLean Lacerda, I understand what you're saying, but to expect the Celtics to play near perfect basketball when they won by 54 points against I don't care who they were playing, that was an NBA team full of NBA players coached by NBA coaches. To win a game by 54 points, you have to play an unbelievably high-level basketball game. And you have to have the other team play a relatively low-quality basketball game. So winning a game like this and playing at this extreme efficient level is almost impossible to do more than a couple times a season, and even that is a stretch. Celtics might have used up their only 50-point win of the season tonight. That doesn't happen very often. So let's not get selfish here in thinking that the Boston Celtics should be winning by 50 every night or shooting 74% in a quarter from the field or 83% from three-point range. Like, those things aren't normal. What the Celtics did tonight is not normal. They did it, though. So it shows us that they're capable of it. And I think that's getting back to what your point is here, McLean, is that you want to see the Celtics just play with that type of ball movement, with that type of defense. They're capable of that. It might not result in this exact same runaway dominant performance, but at least you're seeing that on a nightly basis. So that's what the Celtics want to do. That's what the Celtics need to do. And hopefully, if that's what you are saying, McLean, the Celtics do bring that to the table here heading into 2025 for the majority of this road trip and then heading into a very difficult month of January. So thank you for your comment. I understand it. I think it's a little bit impossible to ask the Celtics to play at this level all the time because they were like unbelievable tonight, but they can play at a super high level every night. They haven't been doing it lately. Let's let them get healthy, and I think that's going to happen much, much more regularly. So as I indicated, they've got a road trip coming up, and boy, oh boy, is this a tough one. It tips off Thursday night. You're taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have not been playing quite as well as they did last season, but that team is loaded with talent with Anthony Edwards at the head, and that's going to be a tough game for sure. They follow that up with a back-to-back the next night against the Rockets out in Houston. Houston, by the way, is one of the best teams out west. That team is up and coming and could wind up winning the West. I wouldn't put my money on that, but that team is playing so well with such rounded balance. That team could challenge to win the West. After that, on Sunday, after only one day of rest, you play for the third time in 4 nights, going out to Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder, who are the number 1 seed in the West. The best team, arguably, in the NBA this season. That's what margin of victory says. Let's see what happens on Sunday. And then they round out the trip with the team that won the championship just 2 seasons ago. That is the Denver Nuggets, with the leader in the clubhouse for the MVP, Nikola Jokic. It's time to find out what the Celtics are made of, folks. They are heading into the toughest month of their schedule all season long. That is January, and they open it up with the hardest road trip that they arguably will have all season long. It all gets tipped off Thursday night in Minnesota. I will have an audio episode of the podcast coming up after that game, so make sure you look out for my tweet after the final buzzer. Send me your thoughts, send me your reactions, send me everything you're thinking after that game. I'll take a few of them on the next episode of Sound Off, which is coming, again, Thursday night. So I'll see you then. For all of you who are watching on YouTube, I appreciate you, and I will see you when I get back on the docket in April. Take care, have a great night, and Happy New Year,